You know, during her operatic career, the New York Times praised Martina Arroyo as one of the most gorgeous voices before the public. She was, of course, a star at the Met and on the stages of all the great opera houses in Europe. And after her retirement as a full-time opera singer, she began a second career as a music educator, most notably at Indiana University. In 2003, she established the Martina Arroyo Foundation, whose chief task is to help talented young singers develop their professional career. One program of that foundation is called Prelude to Performance, and I came to speak with her about that today. Martina, thank you so much for letting us come here to talk to you.
My pleasure.
As you know, we've been trailing you all day, and what we found is this incredible activity of classes and staging rehearsals, all leading to performances on July 16th at Hunter College.
Four performances, the K Playhouse, July 16, 17, 18, and 19. We do 2 operas, double cast, 2 Fledermaus, 2 Bohems. It's a full production, and we hope it's as close to a professional situation as they could have. I didn't see in your face they're going to have a good time. Oh, geez, I've still got to work. Let me try to get on with this.
What motivated you to start these workshops?
I saw wonderful talent all over the world not being given enough training to come in the short period from their musical training years into the theater to develop the character. Let's get that a little bit more curioso. There were many beautiful voices who didn't convince me that they were Butterfly or Aida or Rigoletto or whoever the character might have been. And I thought if they could have had just a couple of more years or whatever it took to involve that part of the performance, we'd have a complete character, believing in what they're doing and saying the words with meaning and with real involvement. I just love singers that say something, that they just don't sound good, but they say something.
What did the singers have to go through to make it to this program?
We hear of auditions 4 times a year, and then they have to go and discuss with their teachers the role that we would have in mind for them, because the teacher must be involved, because we don't teach technique, vocal technique. When they come, they're supposed to have the parts memorized, and you notice I said supposed. We hope for that, so that we can get right into putting the skin on. And working with the languages.
Aber da ist er doch. Dr. Parker hat uns die Wohnung so richtig beschrieben. Natürlich.
This year we were very lucky. The opera Die Fledermaus, which we thought was going to be so difficult because we're doing the dialogue in German, which everyone says, why are you doing that? And we even said that, but we thought that as we have to learn recitatives in Italian, the dialogue would be the equivalent, and if at some stage they're singing in Europe, in a house that might do the dialogue in German, they're prepared. And it's also wonderful to learn how to use the language, speaking it as well as singing it. So when we said dialogue in German, we thought no one was going to audition for it. Instead, we had lots of choices.
Einen kleinen dramatischen Scherz vorzubereiten.
Also, wie heißt das Stück?
Now, give us a sense of the classes that the singers have to attend.
First of all, our program is from 10 in the morning until 6, which means it's a long day.
Yes.
In the morning,
we noticed.
Yes. Between 10 and 1, they study things like the languages, which is extremely important, of the 2 operas that they're doing, not just arbitrary languages. And we have had the great fortune to have Miss Lydia Papa, who is the director of German coaching at the New York City Opera.
I'd like you to put as much energy now in your dialogue as you did in your wonderful acting.
And she started working with the Fledermaus cast a month before to help them not only speak the language, but to speak it fluently and conversationally.
What you do on the stage has to appear to be a private conversation, but the guy in the very last row has to hear you.
And this lady worked with each one, those who spoke English, those who didn't speak English, those who spoke German, but not Austrian, you know.
Please don't rush words. I know you want to get it over as fast as possible, but don't rush your words.
And let me tell you, she's tiny and tough. She says, don't mess with me.
Gavotte, minuetto, habanella, fandango.
They have a libretto class, which is where they speak the roles without the music to learn how to say the sentence. The young people love it because they don't realize how important it is to simply know the words as prose.
What I'm trying to pull out for you in this act in particular, from what I saw in rehearsal yesterday, is this sense of intimacy.
This class is taught by Ellen Reevman, who's a former ballet dancer from the Metropolitan Opera Corps Ballet, and she's very popular.
I think the fooling around is actually what keeps them, well, of course together, but also surviving.
I agree.
And then they have stagecraft, movement on stage, walking, carrying themselves in their period in which the opera is based. Anthony Latour from the Metropolitan Opera, who's a character tenor there, helps them learn how to beat character.
You're under my spell. You're gonna...
How do you know who the guys are that live upstairs?
Because I've heard them coming up and down the stairs before.
They have a role class, the class that I teach. When they do the background work, they read the origin of the opera. For example, the Bohème was originally stories by Mouchet. What has happened to you during the arias? Have you gotten closer to each other? Are you really interested now? Are you really getting...
Yes.
And how do you feel about him? He's told you his story.
I definitely feel much stronger attachment to him.
They study the history of that period of the opera and of the composer. They study the political situation because what we're asking them to do is put on the skin of that other person. So you have to know about their life before page 1.
The petticoat holds it out.
They want to know what costumes were worn in that period. We insist that ours go to the museums and see the paintings and to see the dress.
Now let's just take a look at see how this lies.
The costume designer, Charles Kane, had been at the Met for 40 years. Oh, that's beautiful. The color is really nice.
The color, that's the idea behind it, just to punch it up a little bit.
Make the distance more and keep the energy going.
Then there's the staging in the afternoon of the opera. So we have a faculty of over 20 people working with 30. The faculty is comprised of people like Maestro Anthony Willie Waters, who you've heard many times on the intermissions at the Metropolitan Opera.
But you need to play with her. Do not lose the chase. Do not lose the chase.
The stage directors are Michaela Bogdan, who's from the Romania State Opera, as well as Michael Ehrman, who's a very well-known director.
So this is where the fire is so angled more this way.
As Gerald Steichen from the New York City Opera. He's conducting the Bohème. In Bohème, in the staging rehearsals, you're seeing the first act between Mimi and Rodolfo. The affair is beginning, and they declare love for each other. After they've had their rocky meeting, supposedly by accident, depending on how it's played, they found the key that was supposed to have been dropped by mistake. Whether it has been dropped by mistake or not depends on the singer.
What does it take to prepare for the role of Rosalinda in Die Liederkranz?
Oh, wonderful sense of humor. In one of the scenes, she's been invited to a party and her husband doesn't know that she's in a mask, and he's been drinking and flirting and... she flirts with him, and he flirts supposedly not knowing that it's his wife. Of course, I never could understand why he couldn't smell his wife. Don't you know a person by their skin, by anything?
That is true.
Anyway, but in opera, you could have this situation.
So that's the scene that they were preparing
today. Yes.
It was very, on the one hand, with a watch, it was very seductive and very funny at the same time.
It is, and it's supposed to be. And she puts on a Hungarian accent, instead of saying Morgen, she says Morgen.
Oh, warum nicht? Morgen.
Ja, weil...
It's asking for an awful lot, especially with the young people that have been taught to only worry about their gorgeous tones. well, their gorgeous tones are just not enough.
Well, when I first read about the kind of training that you provide these singers, I said, are there no places where singers can get this kind of training besides here?
Many singers do a lot of this work on their own. They have to want to do this knowing what is involved, and we tell them in detail beforehand the hours, the classes.
You are not rid of me. We go on to the second floor.
They must do whatever that opera requires and some extra. It's very involved and very concentrated.
So this is, in a sense, a boot camp. It separates...
Operatic boot camp.
Operatic boot camp.
Yes, never thought of calling it that.
Well, Martina, once again, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been a real pleasure.
My pleasure. See you at the performances.
Oh, you bet.
Take care.